So every once in a while, my friend Jeff just throws together a pretty badass Subaru, and this is one of them that he got done recently. It's pretty much an S203 replica. If you don't know what a S203 replica is, it's pretty much Subaru hot rodded a JDM STI, and they were only offered in Japan, and there were only 555 made. So I mean, they had some other things. They had some really crazy carbon fiber seats that he doesn't have. They had, I think, aluminum trunk, but this has the engine, transmission, rear diff, subframes, brakes, wheels off of a an S203. These were factory brakes on an S203 in Japan. It's kind of crazy. The stuff that they got in Japan is a lot different than what we got in the US, like a lot of other cars. But this engine has a twin scroll turbo. It's a 2-liter that, I'm trying to read the turbo real quick. I forget what model it is, the turbo, but it's a 2-liter. The STIs in Japan were 2 liters up until like 08 or 09 or something, maybe even a little bit later. But yeah, it was a 2-liter that made 320 horsepower and 311 foot-pounds of torque. So a 2-liter that made more than the US 2.5s. This car has an 8,200 RPM red line. I forget all the specs of the engine. As far as, you know, they switched up with EJ207s. They switched up a lot of stuff. Like some models had forged pistons, some models had a forged crank, some had cast hyper-eutectic pistons. But pretty much the heads on this thing flow a hell of a lot of air. The cams are different, valve springs, everything from the version 8 SCI. And this has ABCS. So yeah, and it has a really unique, from the factory, it has the equal length manifolds. I don't know why people like the unequal length manifolds. I think if you on purpose spend the money to put a unequal length manifold on your car, you're kind of a ricer. You really are. Like, maybe it's somebody's preference, they just like that sound, but I fucking personally hate it. The way that an equal length manifold has that nice crisp wail, and it's actually proven that it's better for the car. I don't know why you would spend the money and time to make your car sound like shit and run worse and be worse for the engine. So oh yeah, and this is a factory lip. These come with an external oil cooler, if you see that. And yeah, I'll show you guys how it sounds here in a minute. Of course, by the time that I really start filming, it's getting fucking dark, which sucks. But I should at least be able to get a good pull for you guys. Yeah, this car is just so much fun. Like this, it just has basic bolt-ons. 320 horsepower, this light of a car, with a really quick ratio steering rack, really good brakes, and good suspension. I mean, this just makes for like an awesome, well-rounded car. You know, if you don't pay attention to like the internet, you know, Subaru hate about blown ring lands and vaping and shit like that, you know, you can build a fucking awesome car for not a whole lot of money. Jeff's not trying to go for some, you know, like roll racing highway monster, because obviously that's not very easy with Subarus, but 3 to 350 wheel horsepower in a car like this as a track car is a fucking really good time. It spools like so quick, it's so rapid. On center steering, oh, on center steering. Oh, here we go, it's a tunnel. Kind of. A little bridge area. So today we're trying to get Jeff's car set up with the Carberry ROM, so we can run speed density through the factory ECU. If you're not familiar with the carburetor ROM. It is something that I found out through the ROM Raider forums, which is a open source ECU program. What's kind of cool about Subarus from certain years is that you can, there's software where you can data log and tune with the stock ECU. All you need is a Tactrix cable and the software, which is free. I mean, you should donate, but it is free to download. ECU Flash is the program to flash the car. You can also modify tables with ECU Flash, but there is no data logging as far as I know. Anyways, so there's a lot of really cool features to this ROM. Basically, a guy took a Group N rally car and got information from the ECU, which runs anti-lag and speed density and all kinds of cool stuff, and he reverse engineered the tables so you can, you know, figure out what's going on and modify the tables and flash them to your car. I wonder if the launch control is activated already. Ooh, it is. Oh, that is cool. So yeah, open source tuning's pretty neat. I'm still just getting my feet wet, so to speak, with it. There's a lot to it. It's not exactly user friendly, but if you're somebody who's familiar with like Tuner Pro, or you've used some other you know, standalones and stuff like that, I'm sure you could figure it out. There's all kinds of pros and cons to, you know, open source tuning opposed to a standalone. Obviously, one of the pros is cost. This Tactrix cable, I think, was like $100. But yeah, you can also really fuck up your car if you don't know what you're doing. And I barely know what I'm doing, but I'm smart enough to not push the car if something is weird. So yeah, I just took some logs idling, and I'm gonna do some cruising and take some logs of that and see how everything's looking, and eventually get into some wide open pulls later on today. So, all right, so I just took some cruise data logs, and drivability of the car so far is good. I have to wait to get into any real boost, just make sure that everything's all set. And I figured I would show you guys what's going on with Jeff's RS and some other projects in the shop. This thing is currently under the knife, kind of serving as a storage unit, which is sad, but it looks like a lot of shit and a lot of work, but it'll actually go back together fairly quickly. This is getting the GT35R rotated manifold front mount. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So I work at a BMW independent shop. This is currently what my workspace looks like, which is a huge mess. I have two S85s. These are V10s from an M6 right here, and one had smoked rod bearings and it destroyed the crankshaft, which is really common on S85s, especially the early 06 ones. So this is the new one. I've already replaced the rod bearings with BE improved clearance bearings. The bearing tolerance is too tight and they use too thick of an oil. So, and the fact that it's a 500 horsepower V10 that revs to like 8,500, they wear out bearings quickly. This 2002 is pretty cool. Thing looks like it's in really good shape. I'm not sure why it's in here. Somebody else is working on it. But yeah, it's a pretty cool place to work. Young T Millie here. What's up? Did you fix the? Did you get the billet thing installed already? All right, right there. Sick. This one's getting a restoration. This 911. This is my boss's 911. I forget what years these are, but this car is actually like two cars welded together. It was in some gnarly accident back in the day, but somebody did a really good job repairing it. It's a pretty cool car. He actually has been driving it every day. And this is a pretty rare car. This is a 2002 Touring TII, so it's fuel injected. and this was my boss's daily driver for a while, and it just sat for years, and he's like, you know what, I might as well get that thing going again. So brought it here. We drained all the gas out of it and let the fuel pump soak in PB Blaster for like 10 minutes because it was locked up, and then we got it to run. So actually going to be doing some more work on that. And then this is an E30 that came to us not running. The owner and his friend put an engine in it, and I don't think he knew that somebody had done a timing belt or something, but they sheared the dowel for the crank gear, so it looked like the timing marks were on, but they indeed were not. So we couldn't figure out why it wouldn't start. We looked at the timing marks, it seemed kind of weird, and then decided to put a screwdriver in number one cylinder, and saw that the piston wasn't actually at TDC when it was supposed to be. So I'm like, what the hell is going on? Pull the crank gear, sure, then the dowel sheared off. So we got that corrected, and the thing runs awesome now. Should be a pretty cool project for the guy. Most of the E30s we get in here are super basket cases. Alright, so we're about to make some watt pulls. First wide open throttle pulls with carburetor run, which is sick. Hopefully it doesn't blow up. You have to start down from a pretty low RPM, which like I would never. So I'm going to do a pull from 2,000 to 6,000 RPM in fourth gear. Normally I would never lug a car wide open throttle at such a low RPM and such a high gear, but this provides a lot of data, where if I was to start like 4 to 6K in such a quick amount of time, and there's a lot of spreadsheet tools that you have to have a certain amount of data to even get a good log. All right, here we go. Fourth gear, 2,000. -1 degree, so that's really not that bad. In a perfect world, we'd like to see 0, but drivability is great so far, though. This is sick. Hey, talking in front of a camera when you're by yourself is awkward as fuck, and I'm trying to get the hang of it, so bear with me here. I'm going to try to do this a little bit more often and get used to it and get some better quality content of you guys. If you don't want to listen to me talk at all, I am perfectly fine with that. Just let me know. Thanks.